Awakened Radio is brought to you by our listeners. Those of you who enjoy our wide range of topic and our wide range of listenership. We really do cover the globe with thought and geographic location. Thank you so much for taking part, for coming over and joining us in our chat room, and for clicking that donate button while you're there. We appreciate your contributions. They are what has helped us to grow and will help us to grow even more. While you're at our website, please visit our Awakened store. Take part in our forum conversations. Check out all of the pages at awakenedradio.net. Get to know us. You'll like us. We're really a friendly bunch. Awakened Radio is brought to you proudly by the Creative Playground Mastermind. You can take part in a mastermind group by visiting www.thebarefootguru.com. The Creative Mastermind Group helps you to create a playground where you get to experience your life the way you really want it to be. Thank you so much, and visit www.thebarefootguru.com today.
Welcome to Your Unfolding Senses. I'm your host, Ragozzine, and on this show, we'll be exploring everything intuition. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this week's show. I have some Q&A questions to start off the show, because last week got a few emails, and some people had some questions. One of the first questions that I got was someone asking me, well, you talked about being discerning, but I'm a little fuzzy on what that means here. I want a good dictionary definition. Am I being way too logical? No, you're not. Here's a quote from Lynn Robinson, and she says, accurate intuition makes you feel calm. It conveys information in a compassionate, loving, sure, and certain manner. So if you don't feel good about something that you're doing, then that's not your intuition talking. Now let's go to an image that you might have gotten. Let's say that you're receiving imagery or feelings about a picnic, for instance, and you've decided that, yeah, I think it's time for a picnic, and you want to go have one for yourself. Now, that's fine, but that doesn't mean it's okay to go in somebody's backyard or sneaking into a public park after dark to have your picnic. And you probably shouldn't just jump up and go either. You have to make sure it's okay to take the day off, and then you can go have your picnic. Basically, be aware of the ramifications of your choice. So, yeah, maybe the symbolism is saying go have a picnic, but make sure that you're not going to hurt yourself by coming to that conclusion. So, as we see in every commercial out there these days, be responsible. Be intuitively responsible. Be safe and have fun with it. Got a personal example here. I had just gotten back from a long vacation, and I noticed that my washer plumbing was starting to drip, and I had very few days left to take off to take care of it. So I got into meditation, asked for a symbol to come to me, meditated on it, and the symbol that came was an hourglass in a big pile of sand. So I concluded that I had time to do it, because I looked at the sand as well. Things weren't going to get messy too quickly, but I didn't have a lot of time. So I went to work and scheduled an appointment for that day, luckily, and took care of that problem. So we can go back to the picnic symbolism and say, well, perhaps it's about actually taking a picnic, but maybe it's about bring that energy into daily life, for instance. So maybe it's about being a little bit more relaxed, being a bit more connected to the food that you might have in a picnic. Some of it's more healthy, for instance. Of course, there's always the fried chicken, but you can generally think about the fruits that might be in the basket and say maybe it's time to go and bring some of that into my life. There's many possibilities, and you'll have to really feel into what it means for you. Now, I have a little fun exercise I'd like to try before we go to the next Q&A, and it's simply this. Write down a word or phrase that pops up into your mind. It might be words from a song. It might be a commercial from last night that you remember. It might be something that someone said to you recently, random words. Whatever it is, write it down, and we'll get back to it later in the show, and probably right after break. So be sure to save that piece of paper somewhere or on your computer screen. Just let it go once you've written it down, and we'll come back to it. Now, the second question I received was about Pema Chodron. It says, Rob, I've heard you mention Pema Chodron several times, but I feel a little silly as I have not been able to find her at all. Can you put up a link? I would love to be able to read her article on Tonglen. It sounds out of this world fascinating. Well, I'll do that after the show on my Twitter account, which is Awakened Rob on Twitter, or Numbers by Rob on Twitter. Awakened Rob is for the show, and Numbers by Rob is my main Twitter account. Anyway, in her article, she points out the 4 stages to Tonglen. She says the first stage in the practice of Tonglen, or she calls it taking and sending, is a pause, a moment of stillness and space. It's a brief gap, so it's getting really still and quiet, but still being connected to your body, but also recognizing the space that you're in, maybe even looking out the window. And on a dark night, if the clouds aren't there, and looking at the stars and feeling yourself in your body, but also feeling the vastness of space connected to that. And she says, if you need an image for this, you can reflect on any experience of wide open space, such as gazing out at the ocean or looking up into the cloudless sky, like I just mentioned. So connect with that energy first. The second stage, she says, is a visualization, working with texture. So you're going to inhale, take a deep breath, and breathe in hot, thick, heavy energy. But you're not going to hold on to this, so don't feel like that's going to happen. The next step, as you're breathing this in, you'll visualize it changing, and then you'll breathe out a sense of freshness. She says cool, light, bright energy, and imagine it spreading out 360 degrees all around you. And you can continue this process for a few minutes or until you're really in sync with this imagery of breathing in the heavy, thick, and breathing out the cool, light, vibrant, powerful energy, feeling that pouring through every aspect of your body. The next stage, the third stage, involves a specific situation. Might be painful, might be something that's simply annoying you, something that you would like to help heal in your life, and opening to it as fully as possible, she says. And so you breathe that in, whatever that might be. So it might be, with this week, for instance, it might be the stress of just all the stress that we've been dealing with the elections and the weather. So breathing in the stress, and then breathing out spaciousness and relief. So together, breathe in, stress, taking a deep breath, and then on the release, spaciousness and relief, and doing that several times. And now traditionally, we begin the practice of Tonglen for someone that we wish to bring help to, specifically, most likely ourselves, and then we can branch out and begin to work with others after we've really had some experience with working this for ourselves. So you might work with a feeling of hopelessness or anger, for example, and use that as a stepping stone to the next level of something deeper. So you start out with anger, and then you might work to something like, well, I stubbed my toe yesterday, and that's really hurts. So you might breathe that pain in and work with that. And then you might begin to work with bigger and bigger things. And she says, in the fourth stage, we extend it even further, and we might start doing it for a friend with AIDS, and then extending it beyond that for all those people with AIDS, or all those people with cancer, or all those people who don't have power, for instance. So you see, it can be very, very personal, and then when you get more experience and begin to work with it, you can branch out and extend beyond your personal, but I really recommend doing it on a personal level first. Now, I'd really like to connect with some of the fun things you might do with intuition, because too many people get caught up in the survival aspects of intuition, but it can be really used for creativity and being expansive. So I have a few exercises and ideas to tap into this fun aspect of intuition, and one of them is what I call the movie exercise, the movie game. So you're going to the movies this week. Maybe you can watch on demand, whatever it is. You can't pick which one, though. You're just going to show up at a certain time. So whenever you sit down for your on-demand movie, or you arrive at the theater, whatever's playing at that time, well, on-demand, I guess that doesn't really work. But whenever you show up for at the theater, that's what you're watching, the next movie that's playing. So whatever's the soonest, go in and watch that movie and use it for insight to an answer or a question that you might have. So no matter what it is, just go in and sit down. Obviously, some movies you might need a partner to come in with you, such as family movies. It might look better if you're sitting with someone. So be safe and try not to, stand out or cause people to be confused. But that's one way to have fun. Just play the movie game. Another simple way is to have a set of dice. Treat the even numbers as yes and the odd numbers as no, and just roll. And of course, have a question in mind, or maybe the best way would be to ask for a simple guidance question, not a yes or a no necessarily question, but would it behoove me to do such and such today? And roll the dice. And if you get an even number, go do it. Now, another idea that I was thinking about this week is to sit opposite the partner and then put up a mini blind or partition so you can't see what's on the other side of the table. And now you're going to take turns guessing what the other person has written down or drawn. And you might start with something simple like numbers or shapes and then move on to more complex things. Just have fun with this. So start out drawing triangles or squares, or write down 1 through 10 and have the other person guess what you've written on the piece of paper and see how accurate they might be. And switch up after you've tried a few times and see how accurate you both are. Another game you might try is to get a local map and either throw a dart at it or just point your finger at some place on the map that you want to go this weekend and just go there and be open to whatever comes to you when you're going there. So go explore. You don't necessarily need a question in your mind to solve, but see what comes to you. Be open to having an answer come to you or a solution come to you without even asking. Just go show up in your life, and might be someplace that you haven't been in a while, but you really won't know. Just pick it and go and spend some time there and see what has called you to that place and explore. And maybe it's a new idea, maybe it's guidance. Who knows? Another idea that I had that you might try is to put a question out on Facebook or Twitter and make it general, not too specific, not too, detailed about your life. See what responses come back, and be sure to thank everyone for their response and see how that might fit in to things you're working on. Now, some of those things you might try, some of those things might really come up with some answers, so good luck with those. Some other things you might try that are simple is set everyone to the same ringtone on your phone and start guessing who's calling. So instead of I have barking dogs for one person, so I can take that off and have everyone have the same ringtone and then guess to see who is actually calling without looking at the phone. When you're meeting with someone for lunch or dinner, guess what they're going to be wearing. Guess what the next song on the radio will be. On game shows, this is one of my favorites. I like to do it on Chopped. Who's going to win? Who's going to be chopped? When you're at the bank, when you're at the movie theater, when you're at the car wash, in the grocery store, guess which line is going to move fastest and get in that line. Put out a bird feeder, guess which bird you'll see. Now, I've mentioned the tarot, but you could work with a regular deck and guess which color is coming up. So, red or black, and see how many times you're accurate and see how much accuracy you build over time. Another thing that you might try that could be very intriguing is to pick up a biography on someone you don't know a lot about and just open the book and read the pictures and see what you can pick up about that person before you even read the biography, and write down your notes and record them. And as you read the biography, you might be stunned to recognize some of your hits that you got about the person before you even ever read anything about them. Now, there's many, many different types of intuition. And here's a quote from Lynn Robinson, and she says, "Intuition comes in many forms. It communicates in different ways to each of us. There is no right way to hear its guidance." So that's primarily why I'm mentioning these games tonight, is to break away from the idea that you have to receive imagery or you have to hear words or there's a certain way that you'll receive your guidance. Some of the common ways are clairvoyance or clear seeing, what pretty much everybody expects to have when they're thinking about intuition. So if you commonly dream in color with like vivid, bright imagery, you might have clear seeing. And if you have really sharp peripheral vision and you see things out of the corner of your eye and then you turn and look and nothing's there, maybe you have clear seeing, clairvoyance. Now some others are clairgustance, which is receiving your intuition via sense of taste. So you might taste something you might not have even eaten. Like you might have a memory of a meal that someone who's passed cooked a long time ago, like a pie that your grandmother cooked, and when you think of her, you can taste the pies and cookies that she cooked. And the next one is a sense of smell, clairalience. And again, you might have a whiff of a smell of someone's cologne or baking, and they've long since passed, or you haven't connected with that person in a while. That's clairgustance or clairalience. Especially if you have strong memories of the aromas from meals long past, or you have a dream and you wake up and you can smell something cooking or something burning, and nothing has been cooking and nothing's burning. Clairaudience is when you hear things through sound or words in your inner ear, and that's clear hearing also. So you might wake up, or before you go to sleep, you might hear words in your head or a conversation and no one's in the room, or a song you hear in your head. Then we have psychometry or clairtangency, which is when you touch an object and you can pick up things about the owner of that object. Another is clairsentience, so you might receive information through bodily sensations. You might feel tense, cold, hot. You might have tingling sensations all over your body for no reason. So those are some of the common ways to receive intuition. So it's not necessarily that you'll be getting your information through imagery. It might be through words. It might be through smells, as I said, and you might be able to touch things, pick up things. Another exercise you might try, we can work together with it right now, is to get a piece of paper and pen or jot down on your computer the answer to this question. You can ask, what does my life need right now? And you can ask it a couple times in a row and pause each time and think about it. And then ask it a couple times in a row and set an intention to receive a more meaningful answer every time you ask the question. And then when you're done asking the question, you can pick up your pen or start typing on the keyboard your answer. Or if you have a pen, you can draw a symbol for your answer and see what comes up. So take some time to do that right now. I'm scribbling something right now myself, and I'm coming up with an asterisk, sort of a star shape. I'll have to think about what that means, but I didn't really ask a question. I guess go back to what does my life need right now, so I could interpret that as more spaciousness, to be able to see the stars. Haven't really seen the stars this week, so maybe getting outside, and this weekend it's really going to be nice, so spending some time out in the fresh air while the weather's warm might be a really good thing to do. Now, another exercise you might try so that you can break out of the idea that we're receiving our information in just words is to think of your hands and your ears and your fingers and your whole body as little scoopers of information. So your eyes, your ears, your skin, everything is constantly collecting information out there in the invisible universe. And just sort of like they're all mini cell phones, you might say. So imagine you're collecting all this information and it's inside of you. Now, how can you connect with that? And I guess just imagine that that's all collecting information, and simply by asking it, like, okay, eyes, what have you collected for me today? And then review what comes up. Okay, ears, what did I hear today? Okay, hands, what did I touch today? Okay, skin, what did I feel today? And see what comes up for you. See what memories, what are the sharpest, most keen memories for the whole day, and see what you remember. See how vivid it is, and see what emotions come up, and see how connected you are to all of it, and see how you might have pushed it away during the day. Now you can sit back as you're reviewing and really bring that information back in. Now, one more exercise, I guess we have 5 minutes or so, is to pretend that you have an inner sort of music guy inside your head, and you can ask him to play a song at any moment that's relevant just to you. So you might have a question, and that you can ask him, okay, play me a song right now that's relevant to my situation. And you can even switch on the radio if you want, or just wait to hear the words in your head that come to mind, and you might find yourself humming a tune. So try that, see how well it works, and who knows, maybe that will help solve a problem. Now, when we come back, we'll talk about feeling into your body where you might feel stressed or worried, so that we can really connect more with our emotions and our feelings around our intuition. Because a lot of times when we're not connecting with our intuition, it's because we're letting other things get in our way, as I mentioned last week and previously. So take some time now, and as we head into break, to feel into your body where you might feel tension, where you might feel stress the most, especially this week during all the hecticness of the election and the weather, and notice where you might have felt it, especially if you live on the East Coast. And we'll come back and we'll talk more about that after the break. But for now, just feel into your body and see what you connect to, what aspects of it are the most sharp, and you might go over the various different forms of intuitiveness that I mentioned to notice if you sense any smells when you think about stress, any colors that might come up in your vision, any sounds or smells, as I mentioned, or imagery in your mind. Just go over those 5 senses: common intuition, the clairvoyance, clairgustance, clairalience. Just review them and see which ones are sharpest for you. And maybe you'll come to recognize that one of those is sharper than the rest. And we'll talk about that after we come back and look at where you feel stress and where you don't. And you might also look at your answer that we talked about with the paper and drawing a symbol just 5 minutes ago. So look at that too. See how that might help you. And we'll talk about that. Now,
and now a word from our Awakened Radio sponsors. AwakenedRadio.net is brought to you by AwakenedRadio.net host and those who support our station by shopping at our Awakened store and by making loving contributions and donations to our station each month. We are also supported by TheBarefootGuru.com. Thank you so much for your love and support of the Awakened Radio Network at AwakenedRadio.net. Awakened Radio, AwakenedRadio.net. We're all about the new FM frequency. Are you maybe having a hard time getting the word out, sharing your message about your book, your product, your coaching, your healing services? Well, check out the Awakened store at AwakenedRadio.net. Donna Devane has a brand new course set up just for you. We'll guide you through the different types of broadcasting, how to really communicate with your listening audience in a way that they are ready for your message. No more hard sales pitches. No more sounding or feeling like a used car salesman. Come on over to AwakenedRadio.net today. Check out our Awakened store The tab is right up under our banner, and go to Divine Connections. I'll be more than happy to help you get your message out to our growing global audience.
Welcome to your Unfolding Senses. I'm your host, Ragozzine, and on this show, we'll be exploring everything intuition. Let's get started. Okay, now that we're back, we'll go back to the piece of paper that you wrote down, a word or phrase, at the start of the show. Now, you can look at that word or phrase and use it as a piece of guidance to a question you might have been working on. And that might be a very powerful piece of guidance. And see that you can be your own intuitive guide right there. Now you can do this with a group of people and have everyone write down a word or phrase and then shuffle up the pieces of paper and give everyone a different answer from somebody else. And they can talk about how their word or phrase helps them to answer their question. So that might be a little fun party game that you can try. And I think that's from a book by Robert Moss, and I've used it at a few parties, and it's a lot of fun. Now, I was talking about before we left and had break about feeling into where you might have tension when you feel stressed or worried. And usually, for most people, it's in the solar plexus, which really connects, if you're familiar with the chakra system, with the third chakra. But I always recommend that you explore this for yourself and see how it works for you. And we can talk a lot more deeply about it when we have a later show. But for now, the solar plexus chakra, the third chakra, usually refers to our perceptions, our power, our control, our freedom. So when it's vibrating or when it's clear and there's nothing blocking it, we're not feeling stressed. But when it's not clear, we're feeling stress, and if we can feel into our solar plexus and feel really tight, tense, or not there, then that's when we feel blocked, and that's when our intuition is blocked, and that triggers our feelings of survival instinct and things of that nature. And that chakra relates to the solar plexus, the stomach, the gallbladder, the spleen, the liver, as well as the skin and muscular system and your face. So your whole body externally in general. And some signs that it might be out of balance is when you have difficulty concentrating, for instance. You can't make decisions, you can't judge a situation, trouble taking action, maybe trouble getting things done. So just generally feeling confused in general, if that makes sense, generally feeling confused. So look to that and look to any, of course, today we all have some of these symptoms, but look to it, especially if, when I mentioned feeling stress in some area of your body and you immediately went to the solar plexus, look to that and see if that's true for you. And then you might begin to bring balance to that by various chakra exercises that we can talk about later. But the problem is, if you're doing any kind of meditation or any kind of exercise around the chakras, you should try to balance all of them so that they're all in balance. And one of the physical common senses that's associated with this too is sight and vision. So if it's blocked and tense, we're not seeing as well on a physical level as well as an intuitive level. So 2 levels that we're not seeing clearly on. So we're not seeing how we can take back our control, how we can own up to our power, because we've let the stress get to us. And like I said, you can bring balance to this, but not just to this one, by finding a good meditation that works with all of them. And again, we can talk with that later. But just know that fear in your life is, and any kind of physical survival feelings, sometimes overblown, self-esteem, it's all connected to this health, well-being. And it's really looking at not responding from pure logic to all of your problems, but stepping away from the survival intuition and trying to find a way to step into more of a inner power and ability to recognize that you can change and create what you want, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you can do it, and believe that you can unknot this creative block that you've created for yourself. And part of that is responding in a way that ignites your intuition, and that's looking at life more from a symbolic, more intuitive aspect. So again, you might go back and try some of the things I mentioned earlier, like asking a question or not, and going to the movies and just seeing what the answer is by the movie that comes up. And as I was saying before, all your answers don't have to be necessarily about your job or occupation oriented. But they could hit on, something creative or intuitive that can help you make changes in the rest of your life, so that you'll feel more enabled and more self-empowered, and you then feel better about working as the rest of your life is improving. And as the rest of your life improves, your job can improve. But the intuition doesn't necessarily have to be about that. And a lot of people just focus right there, and that creates blocks in and of itself, just because you're restricting yourself and feeling that, I have to have this answer. So we can look at some of the reasons why you're not understanding your message, not getting the message that's actually coming to you. One is you're looking at it as from a survival aspect rather than creative, expansive. So you might not be ready for your answers. You might be connecting to the negative emotions that others have contributed to you or yourself. You're getting your message, but you're not recognizing them. So you're getting a symbol, but you don't know how to interpret it. Maybe you're not asking questions too. So you might be getting messages, but you haven't even asked a question, and you don't know how to interpret the symbol when you get the answer to a question that you do ask. So really it's about first opening to your answers, but also opening to the possibility that you can ask questions and get answers. And if you don't at first pick up any answers or guidance when you do ask, you can release your question and then wait for an answer to come when it's ready. You can have your answers come from events, different situations, people, resources that appear out of nowhere. Sometimes it might not be time to have your answer yet, so just give some time, and eventually you'll get your answer. Now, something strange might happen, as I see in the chat room, and that might be a good time to ask a question like, why the heck did this happen at this time? And see what the answer is. And you might go and just draw something on a piece of paper and see what comes. and also realize that you can have fun with the intuition, and you can be creative and expansive with your intuition. So try to break out of the pattern here of only using it to ask questions of will this happen to me, but how can I change it to how can I get this to happen, or how can I be ready for the next step of my path, or something like that. Something that's expansive versus constricted and fear-based. Now, had some interesting news that I found this week out of Northwestern University in Chicago. They have some research that they've gone through 26 studies published between 1978 and 2010, and they looked at, I guess, the pre-feelings, looking at the ability to anticipate the near future. And the lead researcher, Julia Mossbridge, says what hasn't been clear in these studies is whether humans have the ability to predict future important events even without any clues as to what might happen. So they're looking at this as all the studies to see how they might predict that. And she says a person playing a video game at work or while wearing headphones, for example, can't hear when his or her boss is coming around the corner. But our analysis suggests that if you were tuned into your body, you might be able to detect these anticipatory changes between 2 and 10 seconds beforehand and close your video game. You might even have a chance to open that spreadsheet you were supposed to be working on, and if you were lucky, you could do all this before your boss entered the room. And they're calling this anomalous anticipatory activity, which is kind of a mouthful, but they're saying basically because they can't explain it in the present day about how our biology actually works, but they relate to quantum biological findings, which could possibly make sense by explaining it in a way that's predictive and sort of involves us at the same time. So the research is pretty deep, and they have some message boards that I posted to my Facebook account where Julia has been responding to people kind of on a deep scientific level, but it's some pretty interesting stuff. Now, going back to what I was saying last week, you already know the answer to your question, so that's what you need to keep in mind here. You already know, and we keep talking about that. Keep a log and track your questions, sightings, and answers, and find ways to get calm. So once you're calm, you'll be able to ask a question, ask why is this strange, and then believe that you'll have an answer. You'll be better able to be open to having an answer, and then be able to apply it to your life, trust that it will work, be able to be discerning about it, as I mentioned at the start of the show, and then review how well it worked for you. So you might try some simple statements or questions, as I mentioned before, to better believe that you'll have a valuable answer for yourself. One of the ones I mentioned was good for me was, I know what's best for myself, or what's the best outcome here. And now you might go back to working with the chakras, as I mentioned earlier, as you're working with these questions that I'm mentioning. As I mentioned before, you might try, how can I allow myself to deepen? Where do I need to be clear and focused in my life? How can I manifest my dreams right now? Or how can I sharpen my intuition? As 4 really good ones. And you can ask these questions as you feel into your body and look to the chakras. There's 7 common ones, And we talked about the third one that's in the solar plexus. The first, located at the base of your spine, is the root chakra, and it's commonly associated with the color red. And you could scan that yourself in a meditation and ask those questions and then move through the chakras. The second one is kind of located just below the solar plexus, just above the root chakra, the heart chakra at your heart, your throat chakra at your throat, third eye in the center of your forehead, and the crown chakra located above the head. So to kind of find a way to sit down, I'm kind of running through this quickly because we can do a meditation, but we don't really have time for that. But to just ask those questions through each chakra and see if there's an answer. And at first you might just start out with the first and second and then work your way up to the rest of them over time, because you might get stuck at the first one or the second one just because of the stress that you're working with, for instance, or the solar plexus, because as I mentioned earlier, we've been gathering all the stress, and it's tied, our stomach is tied in knots literally, and we have tension. We might even have stomach issues. We might have various illnesses related to the stomach or the intestines, and well, you might need to seek out professional help and heal those issues as you're healing. Do internal and external help on many levels. I mean, healing on many levels. So these these can be quite complex, but also very, very helpful if you're willing to look at them to see how you're not only perceiving yourself, but perceiving the world. And they might help you to, by working on clearing them, it might help you to deepen your intuition. So again, going back to the different types of intuition that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we talked about the clairvoyance, clairseeing, clairgustance, which is kind of clear taste, clairalience, which is clear smelling, clear hearing is clairaudience, clear tangency is clear touch, and clear sentience, which is clear feeling. So basically connecting with the strongest aspects of your intuition and seeing which one you commonly relate to. Maybe they're most common in dreams. So maybe in dreams you have very fond memories of the smells of cooking from long past, or you have very strong memories of the shouts and commotion in your early home life, for instance. Whatever, the dreams are bringing you an aspect of your intuition, so you can find a way to connect with that, perhaps by playing music that your parents liked or grandparents liked, if you think that you're connected to the clairaudience. And maybe if you're connected to clairaudience, you might schedule some time where you sit in silence. And a really good idea might be to notify someone that you're going to spend a weekend or one day during the weekend and completely deplug. Turn off the clocks, turn off the cell phone, or put it on vibrate, or just don't look at it, and tell someone that for one day or 2 days you're not paying attention to time, you're disconnecting from the outer world, and you're going to pay better attention to your intuition. So just go to bed at the start of the weekend, and when you get up, it's time to get up. Don't pay attention to any of the clocks. Like I said, unplug them, stop them, and you really want to get connected with you. So don't listen to any music during this time. Don't listen to any TV. All the electronics are turned off. And at first, maybe an hour will be too much. But over time, you might be able to do it for a whole day or a whole weekend. Just make sure someone knows that you're doing this so that you're safe, you're being discerning, and you know that if something bad happens or there's an emergency, people can reach you. And in this way, you'll be able to connect with these, with your intuition and your feelings on a deeper level. And you'll be able to really sharpen them because you'll be sitting in silence. And if you think that clear gustance is your sharpest intuition skill, you might just sit and cook the whole time. Or you might sit and smell various things, like you might cook a nice pot roast and enjoy the smell for a really long time. It depends on which intuitive aspect you think is your sharpest, but you really can hone all of them. But spending time in silence, alone or perhaps with others, might allow you to deepen and really connect with them on a new level. So if you usually wake up in the morning with a song in your head, some people have told me they wake up every morning with a new song in their head, and they might not have ever heard that song before, and they might use it to write a new song. I remember reading that Paul McCartney woke up with the theme to Yesterday in his head, and he rushed around and like a madman and wrote it down, and it's one of their most popular songs. Or like Mary Shelley, she had visions and words poured into her head, and she wrote Frankenstein. It wasn't even a dream. She called it some sort of vision that she had. And there's other authors that had similar experiences. Stephanie Myers had chapter 13 of her book. It's not The Host. It's the other series there. Anyway, was based on a dream. So you really, by connecting with your emotions and your intuition, you'll realize which is sharpest, and then you can recognize in which moments you're receiving intuition, and you can then make better sense of it, and you'll be better prepared to use it. So when you wake up in the morning and you have a song in your head, you can write it down and ask, what does this mean? That's strange. I've never heard these words before in this particular order. What does it mean for me? And work with that in a way that can help you to perhaps solve a problem you've been working with. Maybe the words might help you solve a problem, as I just said. So you never know. And the problem, I think one common problem, as I mentioned, is that we think it's got to be imagery that we're getting. And no, it can be any one of these things, or it could be a mixture of them, or still something completely different. It might even be someone coming up to you and saying something that's totally odd that you never heard before. Just be open to receiving the information and treat it as valuable, and you'll get more and more and more and more. But the thing that I really want to remind you is we're trying to break away from beyond basic intuition and stretch into creative and expansive intuition, so we can be more creative, dynamic, and fluid. And instead of letting our fears block us, to be able to be expansive and say, yes, I perhaps am afraid of this, but I'm not going to let it stop me from doing what I want to do. I'll take steps to take care of what might happen or what might go wrong, but I'll still try to do it. I might not be successful at first, but I'm going to try. So, and that's really the first step, is I'm going to try. And then the next step is to look at how you can get clear, into your intuition, or be clear, as I was trying to say, how you can be clear about what's coming to you. And that might be one way, might be to really recognize your body and the signs that it's already giving you. So if you have a knotted stomach, tension in your solar plexus, to find a way that works for you to help heal that. Maybe that's through meditation, maybe that's through exercise, yoga, massage, whatever works to help you to connect with that and release that energy to go and do that. And there's many, many, many meditations that connect with and work with the chakras, and we'll talk with those later. But also to recognize, as I mentioned, the Northwestern study, there's lots of people recognizing the validity of intuition, and they're trying to explain it in a way that makes sense to our scientific mind, but that's not necessarily what's important. What's important there, I think, is just to recognize that more and more people are recognizing that intuition is, in fact, important, and to recognize, oh, I too see it as important, and to make space for it in your life. So you might try any number of the exercises that I mentioned tonight. So again, the movie exercise, just going to asking a question and showing up at the movies and seeing what's playing and using that as a guide to answering your questions, or something more simple, as I mentioned, where you set up a mini partition and have each person draw some simple shapes or numbers, and you each guess or play the card game, guess which card's coming up, black or red, or have a set of dice, as I mentioned earlier, and treat the odd numbers as yes and the even numbers as no, or vice versa, and roll them and get an answer. We only have 3 minutes left, so I'll mention my site, which is on Facebook for the show. It's Awakened Rob on Facebook, or Awakened Rob on Twitter. And Numbers by Rob on Twitter is my main site, and I primarily talk about numerology on that site. And my main web page is blog.simplynumbers.com, and you can connect with me to Twitter on there and my email, so you can send me emails there. And you can sign up for my newsletter, and you can also sign up for you can send me a question there, and you can reach me there or on Twitter. And I'm on Twitter every day, so Numbers by Rob or Awakened Rob. And that's it. Thank you for joining me on the show. You might light a candle for the people in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut who've gone through some 2 rough weeks, but also the rest of the country, and anyone who is experiencing trauma right now, and send them well wishes and your heartfelt prayers or whatever's appropriate. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I hope you have fun connecting to your intuition.
Did you know Awakened Radio has a store slap full of gemstone jewelry, stones, crystals, Donna Devane's autographed books, healing sessions, all sorts of interesting and exciting things. And because Awakened Radio is celebrating our first birthday throughout the month of November, when you visit awakenradio.net and click Awaken Store, look there for a special coupon code that will save you money when you use it at your checkout. It's our way of saying super duper thank you and celebrate the Awakened Radio first birthday with us. Hey, do me a favor. Invite all your friends to our birthday party. The whole month of November, we're going to be celebrating not only with sales in the stores, but with giveaways and contests and all sorts of fun stuff. Join us, awakenedradio.net. We're going to have fun on this playground.